Hello, everyone. Happy Monday, December 9th, 2024 to you. A lot to talk about today. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey for another edition of the Wolverine Live. And the offseason is underway. Transfer portal's open. Michigan has an offensive coordinator opening. Uh, the bowl game. Basketball's rolling right now. We're going to get to all of it. Fellas, welcome back. It's things are kind of starting to move fast here, waiting on an offensive coordinator for Michigan. But this is where the build begins. This is where Team 146, as they'll coin it, will be forged in the fires of this offseason. And so far, a lot of momentum, but got to keep it going.
Yeah, got to find an OC now that the portal's open. They've got to figure out who it's going to be. And Jason Candle, we've been hearing his name a lot from the beginning as we posted on our first hot board about a week ago, I guess it was, that Kirk Campbell was let go. So I like the name. He's not the only name. There are some others they're looking at. So we'll see where it goes. But they got to get somebody in here pretty quickly because guys are going to want to know from the transfer portal who their offensive coordinator is going to be. So other than that, Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl, you start the year with Alabama, you end the year with Alabama. And frankly, whatever happens on December 31st happens. I don't really care. Obviously you want to win, but if you're going to give me the choice between one or the other, January 1st will never be duplicated or replicated. So we'll see who plays in that game. I'm guessing there will be a lot of opt-outs. In fact, I'm not guessing on a few. There are going to be some guys who absolutely do sit out. So, but it'll be fun to be down there with you guys. We'll have a good time.
It's an interesting time of year because you're building and attacking at the same time with a sword in one hand and a shovel in the other as you're building towards the future. But you still want to win this football game, and it's kind of an exciting matchup. Like you said, I mean, the rematch of the Rose Bowl, way less luster than the Rose Bowl, of course, but a little more excitement than maybe playing like South Carolina's pretty good, but maybe an Ole Miss. Just the fact that it is Alabama, I think makes it a little bit more exciting. And it's historic anytime these two teams go at it. Only 6 times in history. They're 3-3 overall. Michigan 9-9 against SEC teams in bowl games. So add another one on there, and we'll tee it off on New Year's Eve. It should be fun.
Do we know, and with all due respect, what ReliaQuest does? Are they some kind of maybe we can get our producer Megan on this?
No, I looked it up last night. It's cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
I prefer Oracle for all things tech, but
Well, yeah, I don't think we can say that now that we're so. All right, well, you saved Megan having to do some work, so good job. Cybersecurity, it is. I'm going to feel nice and safe down there. So, just got a letter in the mail the other day that something of mine was hacked in a huge breach. So, wonderful. Maybe ReliaQuest will help me out. But I'll be happy to be in Tampa, guys. Being in Florida in December does not suck.
I can tell you, just based on recent experience, being in Florida as of 2 weeks ago did not suck. So excited to get back down there. Last year's bowl trip, I mean, it was basically just a 2-week bowl trip, but interesting. This is the third time that I've ever done a bowl or have made plans to do a bowl trip, and Alabama has been featured in all of them. So the 2019 Citrus Bowl, obviously the Rose Bowl last year, which again, that whole week or so just blurred right together. And then we'll all be in Tampa. So excited for that. Excited for the game in general. I think that, to me, it sounds cliche, but when you go back and look at this season, I just think that 8-5 looks a lot better on paper than 7-6 does. A 6 loss just feels so, blah, just to the eyeballs, but
yucky.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be, it'll be interesting to see who plays and who doesn't. Cause I do think that if there are a couple guys on the fringes, of NFL draft boards or whatever, I do wonder if they suit up in this game. Cause it's a chance for some good on good. You put those two, the block M and kind of that script A next to each other. And that's, I would imagine that if NFL scouts aren't there, they'll probably at least have it on for background noise during the holidays. So I'm excited for it. We'll talk about it here more in a little bit. First, we want to talk to you guys about our friends over at HomefieldApparel.com. Listen, Christmas shopping this time of year, the sooner you can get out ahead of it, the sooner you can fill your closet, fill the drawers up, knock some items off the list. You got to do it. Homefield Apparel, one of my favorite Michigan apparel collections that's out there, and I consider myself a bit of a connoisseur, but Homefield Apparel. I mean, you got crew necks, you've got the hoodies, you've got the joggers, the most comfortable t-shirts that I own, the most comfortable sweatpants that I own. It's all there. So head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order over there. Right now, I'm scrolling through, seeing what the platinum boxes are still available. Quarter zips, the coaches' jackets. Clayton Safey wearing those coaches' jackets at a tailgate late in the year. It's the man looks superb in it. So if you want to look as cool as he does, if you want to just add it to your own collection, add it to someone else's collection. Promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. We are also brought to you tonight by ourselves. Use that promo code. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. Can we pull it up on the screen for a sec so I can read it? UM1. That should be easy to remember. 2 months for only $1. That's going to get you in over the next 2 months. I mean, that's going to cover the coaching changes, maybe more changes past Kirk Campbell. We'll see. Transfer portal. There's still some recruitments out there lingering until the next signing day. So use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access for only $1. And I'll do laps around my property for forgetting that promo code. So thank you to Homefield and thank you to us. Let's take this question really quick. We will do questions at the end of the show, but we will stop and do super chats as they come in. For $4.99, Michigan Go Blue 1234 says, early thoughts on the 2025 team. I don't know who's going to be on it yet. So that's my thought on it.
My thought is you got to keep the nucleus in terms of, okay, Rayshon Benny, you got to keep Rod Moore, you got to keep Derek Moore, get him back here. Both linebackers, right? And then you've got the start of a really good defense, in my opinion. I'm going to need a corner or two from the portal. Going to need a safety or two from the portal. But Rod Moore, to me, is huge in terms of being a captain. The offensive line, I really don't care what direction they go. That sounds kind of mean, but if they got 4 guys from the portal, that would be great. And to really maybe starters even because they need upgrades in a lot of areas. So would obviously love a couple of the tight ends back there. Hogan Hansen, wide receivers wide open, but Max Bredesen to me is a big one too. They need him back on offense as for toughness and for his leadership. Those are the guys that you need to build around. And then after that, it's kind of a crapshoot. We have to wait and see who they get in the portal, but they need receivers, they need offensive linemen, and another quarterback.
In other words, the early thoughts are a bunch of TBDs everywhere. Who's going to come back? Who's going to come in?
But those are the guys that they better get those guys back. They should be able to get those guys back, in my opinion, if they do deals right.
Right. So, but still, like we're not going to know for a while. So it's kind of tough to say. We don't know who the offensive coordinators. We don't know who the another quarterback is going to be to come in and compete with Bryce Underwood. So it's really early. I know they asked for early thoughts. So I think there's potential if you do get those guys back and make quality additions, but it's not just making additions. These guys have to be good players as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out and who's calling the offense and who's running the offense.
Yeah, I think a good place to start too would be, I guess this could roll into our opening segment here, is who's not going to be on the team in 2025. You've had a handful of Michigan players enter the portal, and I mean, I can't say none of them are incredibly surprising. Tyler Morris to me is a guy that I think I kind of would have preferred to hold on to as like a number 3, maybe a slot wide receiver, but he's in the portal. Jade Denegal is in the portal. Cole Cabana is in the portal. Tavier Dunlap, Raheem Anderson, Tristan Bounds, Tommy Doman, Andrew Gentry, Micah Pollard. So a lot of guys who were on the fringes of the 2 deep. Dominic Jadis started some games at center. Andrew Gentry started some games at right tackle, but those are spots that they need to get better at and that the competition, the talent level needs to improve. So I guess maybe that's just where we start. I mean, in terms of the guys that they've lost to this point, and we respect the careers and respect the some of the teams they were a part of, but do any of these to you guys ring as a giant loss or something that they need to really kind of pick up the slack for with some of these other roster moves?
No, and in fact, if you'd give me a list of guys that they needed to pair to get to the 105, they would all be on it. And there are a lot more too, including some of these guys over here that the people in chat are saying they would love to see on for the bowl game. I'd like to see him play. I'd like to see him play. I don't know that they'll be here to play, frankly, and a lot of them aren't good enough. So they need upgrades, and that's the result of some subpar recruiting classes the last few years. And now they're getting it back to where it should be at Michigan. And yeah, part of it's transactional. That's the world we live in, fellas. As long as they get guys that are here for the culture and for the to be part of Michigan and to understand what it means to be part of Michigan and not just for the bag, then I'm all for it. So there will be more. There will be several more. I can promise you. How many are there now, guys? Did we count them yet in the portal?
I think up to 9.
Yeah, there will be at least double that and probably a lot more than that. So it'll be fascinating to see if there are any big names that they lose. But to me, this is kind of an overhaul, and there are still some pieces, but they've really got some work to do in the trenches. They got some work to do at receiver, at cornerback. So it's going to be a busy offseason.
Yeah, I think there'll be a ton more. This is only just the beginning. I'd say the only 3 that really sting a little bit would be Tyler Morris, Andrew Gentry, and Tommy Doman. Especially for the bowl game. Now you got new punter, new holder, new kickoff man as well. You hope they don't make Dominic Zavada do that. I want him just keep doing what you're doing, keep doing you. It's working. And then Tyler Morris, like you said, Anthony, I agree. Like he could be in the rotation, like he was last year in 2023 on a good offense. But not necessarily the guy you want leading your wide receiver core. So him, and then Andrew Gentry, I thought looked okay when he played a little bit this season. But part of it too is when you talk about they got to upgrade. I think the players on the roster know that Michigan is likely to do that, or at least likely to attempt to do that. So they're going to try to find somewhere where they can go play, have success. And in that respect, I wish them all well. And some of them had to leave to get down to the roster number. So it's just the way it is. The unfortunate part of this in college football is that the roster is not just, lessening to 105 players for one team. It is for every team. So there are less spots overall. So some of these guys that walked on and are going to have to find somewhere else to go, they may not find a new home, at least for a while. So that's tough. And it's part of the harsh reality of what, a lot of the changes are in college football.
With Gentry, guys, can you remember one of those guys that took a mission and came back like a top 100 kid and then came back and then actually lived up to his 5-star billing or his 4-star? And I'm not against it. I mean,
what other guys have done it? I don't even recall many.
I can go. Yeah, that's my point, though. There are.
I mean, BYU's built the whole program out of it.
Right, but have they had a bunch of pros that
Taysom Hill?
Yeah, he's the only one that came to mind. It was Taysom Hill, and then I'm going back to Michigan. I'm going Jeff Holtry and guys like this, who's way before your time, that were really highly sought after. And I wonder if there's something to, these guys are doing push-ups and using rubber bands, I guess, between houses when they're spreading the word. And God bless them for doing that, But it's pretty interesting to me. It'd be kind of an interesting case study. So
yeah, it's
yeah.
No, I was just no disrespect to the mission at all, but yeah, I just think that. But I think, just think of again.
What's funny, Clay?
It's just funny that we had to say that.
Well, you
never know.
You know that people are always watching us and clipping stuff, and we get thrown out of context at something. But I think, not to go back to like high school or middle school gym class or health class, but I just think 17, 18, 19 years old. There's so much physical development, especially when it comes to these guys getting on college diets and the weight program and all those things. I think when you walk away from that for a few years and then you get thrown into a fire at a place like Michigan where, these guys have been training with Ben Herbert for 3-4 years. And now similar stuff going on with Justin Tress. And he's been part of that. I'm not, this is year 3 for him. And I'm not, you do what you got to do. Kind of surprised because I think that there was some kind of inside out versatility there. And I think he would have been a guy that had, created some competition in the 2 deep, but, I think it was when you look at it's similar to when Dominic Giudice came out of nowhere to kind of all of a sudden he's in the mix to start at center in the opener. Is that was probably a red flag when you hear Giudice and then Evan Link's name come out of nowhere, that guys like Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy and Greg Crippen, who started, the back half of the season, it's not, the level of play just has not been good enough there. So you flip over to some of the guys that they're in on, we've heard stuff about, or it seems like since mid-October, we've heard about Donovan McCulley, but that hasn't really come to fruition yet. It seems like he's still taking visits. Jordan White, an offensive lineman from Liberty, who interior guy, I think he was like the 6th highest graded interior lineman in the country this year. Like, there you go. We're talking upgrades now. Right before we went live, the nose tackle from Kentucky, I believe it is Keyshawn. Is it Slater?
Silver.
He's a guy was reading up on earlier today. Like, there's your nose tackle if you're in the mix for him. So you're already starting to kind of see, and the portal just opened today. I know we've been reporting on guys jumping into the portal and guys that might be visiting since last week, but today is really the first day the portal's open. It runs through December 28th, and I think we're going to continue to kind of see names trickle out and visits occur and go from there. But any targets currently on the board that you guys have your eyes on? I think the thing I've been surprised about is that not a lot of buzz on quarterbacks at this point, but that could also be them operating mostly in silence like they did for the Underwood recruitment.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know that they are going to take a quarterback and that he is going to compete for the starting job. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And maybe there is a quarterback with ties to an offensive coordinator, past or present, that they can bring in and say, hey, let's teach him. And at the same time, we could teach Bryce Underwood. But Bryce Underwood's going to play, fellas, flat out. He's going to play. There's no question. And by the end of the year, would it stun you if he was the starting quarterback here? It certainly wouldn't surprise me. So, but other than that, yeah, I'm seeing names of offensive linemen, and I'm thinking, man, these are big names. These are great. There's a kid from UNLV who just got in with a great name, who didn't allow a sack all year. They're going to need some tackles, fellas. The days at Michigan of guards playing tackle need to end, and they are going to come to an end the way they were recruiting that position. Andrew Babalola, for example, is one kid I predicted would play. I don't know that he'll start right away, but maybe he's that big extra lineman that they bring in some packages and things like that. He's going to play, but they need to upgrade, and I think that they are going that route. I asked, you guys remember on signing day of Sherrone Moore, hey, how important was it to build those trenches? And he said that's where we start and that's where we end. So that's what wins ball games. That's what wins the Ohio State game. We've seen that for 4 years in a row. So hopefully they get some of these guys in and they have a lot of competition there, because that to me was the biggest disappointment last year, even bigger than quarterback, because you knew that it was going to be a struggle. We predicted it, but offensive line should have been better than it was.
Yeah. I think the quarterback one is really the most fascinating. Like, anyone can get a quarterback, but how good is he? And how, how can they lift this offense up, at least in the meantime, until Bryce Underwood does take over? I wouldn't be surprised if he takes over mid-season, similar to Caleb Williams at Oklahoma back in 2021. Comes in during the Texas game, kind of wins them that football game, and then the job was his over Spencer Rattler the rest of the way. So I could see something like that unfolding, but you do want somebody who's good. You don't want, a pedestrian level of play there like you had a lot of the time this season. So it's going to be really important. What are they going to do? Is Miller Moss going to be the guy or somebody else? And then, just a bunch of positions in need really around the roster. You could use guys at pretty much every spot, but offensive line, defensive tackle, a corner, maybe a tight end if you grab one, and then a couple receivers, I would think, as well. So there's going to be a lot of movement, and it's going to be kind of fast and furious here. We're only one day in.
I love what's on the board at wide receiver right now. And again, you'll start to see some of these dominoes fall here, but I mean, the top of the board at wide receiver, I won't go through it here. We'll probably do something on it later this week, but the quarterback thing is fascinating to me too, because it's going to probably take a veteran that has 1 year of eligibility left. And you got to kind of know in the back of your mind that you might be coming in to be Kelly Bryant, getting replaced by Trevor Lawrence. Like, that might be within the range of outcomes. Now, I think for Michigan, I think if you're able to recreate the dynamic at the very least that like Cade McNamara had, where you mix in JJ McCarthy, I think at worst, that's probably what you're looking at. A lot of people say, oh, you can't just bring in like, you got to let Bryce start right away. You got to let him start right away. And I would caution that, because we've seen with some of these other freshman quarterbacks across college football, even when you're a 5-star, look at Dylan Raiola, and no disrespect to our Nebraska producer behind the scenes, but usually when you have a freshman quarterback, that comes baked in with 4 or 5 losses right off the bat. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. So you'd love to have a guy to come. Now, talk about dominoes falling. it kind of feels like early that Syracuse might be the school where you start to see stuff fall into place because they've been in the mix for Miller Moss, Caden Salter, Darian Mensah is in the portal from Tulane. He's a guy that's been linked to Syracuse. So I wonder if that's one of the spots where we start to see things falling in. But yeah, be interesting to see who else jumps in. It's day one. There's going to be more. There's going to be a lot of guys that are available. And who knows, maybe a surprise materializes somewhere. But I think I don't know how possible I think some people have kind of said, oh, well, Michigan's got the money cannon rolling. They just got to go get this year's version of Cam Ward. I would caution people against setting that level of expectation.
Well, I don't think there's going to be a Cam Ward in the portal. I mean, the quarterbacks right now are not very good in the transfer portal. Miller Moss got benched. He's not very good. He's okay. I mean, Salter didn't have a great year. I think he might have been banged up. And then Mensah, you watch him the other night, he's not very good either. So, I mean, there's not that many good options. I think last year Miami was lucky that the Pac-12 dissolved and Cam Ward decided that he was going to transfer. He wasn't going to be a part of the Pac-2. And there were really more high-profile names. Syracuse benefited with McCord and everything else last year. That was probably as good as it was going to get. So that kind of makes you a little wary of what Michigan's going to do because what options are going to be out there. So it's kind of it was a weak quarterback year this year anyway, just across college football. Draft, guys that are coming back, and guys that enter the portal, at least so far. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of level of talent they can get.
And I'm not saying I don't think it's fair to say Miller Moss is no good. I think
I didn't say no good.
Right. But to say not very good even, I think he was, whatever you said, I think he's better than I think he's got the potential to be better than he's shown. So, and I know that at one point he was thinking about Michigan and that would be good. And now who knows if with Bryce Underwood there, if that continues, but I did want to bring up this question from David. Nobody's asking if the O-line falls on Newsome. Yes. I've been asking about that for months and I've been saying it for months that he definitely owns some of this, because they should be better than they are. The sum of the parts should be much better. There are guys there that can play some football, and we've seen play better football. Gio El-Hadi, I've said this many times. So that needs to be upgraded, whether it means Grant needs to do a better job, whether it means Sherrone needs to be more hands-on, or they need to bring somebody else in. But I'm not going to hesitate to say that just because I have a much respect for Grant Newsome, but this is not a place where you say, boy, I like this guy, so he needs to stay. Unless, of course, he's one of your sources or something like that, and you're leaning on him for information, which obviously we would never pump.
So you're saying Grant Newsome isn't a source of yours then?
Exactly. So regardless, anyway, I hope that he gets better because I'd like to see him stick around and do a better job.
Going back to Miller Moss real quick, I think he's solid, but there's no difference maker. Like Cam Ward came in, he's a Heisman contender right away at his new school. Shedeur Sanders a couple years ago goes to Colorado. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country now. Like, I just don't see that guy out there. I mean, someone could surprise me and enter, but I don't even know who those guys are this year that have eligibility left. So it's just kind of weak in that regard. I just don't think you find a difference maker yet. But it's no disrespect to Miller. I think he'd be a solid addition. Just saying, like, I don't know that there's that guy that could come in and be a top 10 Heisman vote getter next year in the portal, which is kind of sucks when you have this big of a need at quarterback, because you do have just a freshman. What's that?
It's not over yet.
No, exactly. But I don't even know who is coming back this year that is that guy.
Well, Quinn Ewers. It's good. We'll take the one of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning.
Those would be the huge ones. Yeah, those would be the if Quinn comes back, then Arch may leave, and if Quinn decides to come back and leave, then I think Michigan would be a pretty attractive spot. So that'd be kind of interesting. But way ahead of they got a national championship to potentially win.
Yeah. And we still get more Jaden Davis questions. He's not starting the bowl game. He hasn't earned it. He's not close. He will probably not be the starting quarterback here at any point in his career.
There you have that. I'm in terms of big name guys, and I want to pivot to OC here in a second, but I mean, there was some speculation that Noah Fifita from Arizona would jump in, but that seems to have been downplayed. Interestingly enough, John Mateer, Cam Ward's replacement at Washington State, would be a guy that would draw a lot of eyeballs, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's jumping in, or at least not jumping yet either. So, yeah, it's not quarterback play just across the board. I mean, there's not a there's not a plug and play guy in there. So like I said, it's one of those things like the OC that we're about to talk about. You got to find the right guy and a guy that kind of checks the boxes and can get the job done instead of, winning the offseason. We've seen, look no further than the Ohio State Buckeyes, what happens when you win the offseason championship. It doesn't always materialize into results on the field. I want to move to OC, though. And there was a comment here from Ryan Schaefer where he says, how are we supposed to attract a transfer portal QB when we don't have an OC? Let's talk OC for a second. It seems like, again, not a ton of breadcrumbs out there. I think some people sort of upset that a guy hasn't been named yet, given that, Bryce Underwood came in. They must have given him assurances on who the play caller would be or what the plan is. That doesn't seem to be the case. I think that they are taking their time here. We've heard Jason Cannell's name come up. Joe Craddock was a name that was the Tulane offensive coordinator, brought up by Bruce Feldman on Big Noon Saturday before the Ohio State game. Someone who I think stylistically probably fits in with what they'd like to do. Trying to think of some of the other names. I mean, we've heard Jason Candle, Joe Moorhead's name.
Byron Leftwich was on the first list, and I don't
Right.
think that would be terrible in my opinion. Not terrible, but that would be very disappointing in my opinion.
Well, anyways, I mean, we don't have an indication of where things are headed yet. I wouldn't be surprised if there was just a tweet from a national guy at some point saying that this is the move that's being made. But of the names that are out there, the Candles of the world, the Craddocks of the world, or is there anyone else that you have your eye on that you think would be a good fit here?
Well, Brian Greasy's name came up, and that was a pipe dream. I talked to some of his teammates from the 1997 team, and they said there's no way he's leaving the pros. And you really don't want a guy as good as he might be who's never really called plays, right? And so to me, that's a non-starter. Candle's name is one that has been picking up steam. We've got boots on the ground in Toledo, people down there telling us there are a couple things that I've heard, and you're going to have to go to our message board to read what we put up there about it tomorrow. But there is strong reason to believe that Candle is looking for a move a move up, even if it's as an offensive coordinator, not a head coach. So that's the one I'm watching closest at this point. So we'll have more details on that tomorrow. But other than that, it could be a name out of left field, guys. Remember when Mike McDonald, everybody was throwing out all the big names, and then the night before I heard the name Mike McDonald, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? We threw it on the message board, and sure enough, it came to fruition. And so it could be something like that. But to me, it's got to be somebody who has had success, who's not, with all due respect to Wink Martindale, who did a fantastic job this year, somebody who relates to the kids maybe a little bit younger, that has called plays in the type of system that Bryce Underwood has played in the past, and certainly Candle fits that bill. So there are a lot of variables here, but it needs to happen quickly. As somebody said, you've got to have an offensive coordinator in mind, or to be able to land a quarterback. Nobody's going to come here if they don't know who the OC is, right? They're probably thinking, oh my God, it could just continue to be Steve Kasula. They're just going to promote him, once they score 14 or 13 points in the bowl game. So Jonah asks, if you had to guess right now, who do you think it would be? My guess would be Candle. But again, the field is pretty strong too.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, a lot of guys are doing this where they're leaving Group of 5 head coaching jobs for coordinator jobs. I think they realize that some of them don't have the resources at these lower level schools. No offense to the MAC, I do love the MAC. To compete, and you're losing any guys you develop. They end up going up to the Power 4, and then you have to kind of get the trickle down where if a guy kind of underperforms, then you grab him, and then you got to develop that guy. And do you have enough NIL money to compete? And there's so much that goes on these head coaching jobs in general. You saw Jeff Hafley leave from Boston College, to the NFL last year. You saw Chip Kelly leave a Big Ten job for a Big Ten coordinator job. You saw Kane Womack leave South Alabama, I believe it was, for the Alabama defensive coordinator job. You saw Mo Linguist, our guy who left the Michigan assistant coaching job to become the head coach at Buffalo, and then leave that job to become an assistant coach at Alabama. So it wouldn't be a super unprecedented move. He's got experience being an offensive coordinator. It wasn't at the Power 4 level, but he's been a head coach for a while now. So I think that could be solid. I don't know exactly how I would think about it. But there's some good ones out there. I'm disappointed. Just when you hear Dan Mullen first, and foremost, it's like, okay, that one would have been really good. We'll see if maybe that's the big surprise hire or something like that. But I think there are some solid names on the list there, and we'll see what Sherrone Moore could do. It's a big test for him in terms of hiring assistant coaches, and some people say it. There's not great coaches, there are great staffs, and I don't necessarily agree with that because I think a great coach can hire a great staff. That's a quality of a head coach, and Sherrone Moore's got to prove he can do that here. So it's a big, kind of moment here, and we'll see how quickly he moves.
And Mullen was a name that was brought up to somebody close to the program. Somebody posted up there. It's not, you guys don't know any names. These are just names that fans want. That's absolutely not true. Mullen and Leftwich were the first two names that we heard from people close to the program, about as close to it as it gets. So, and now all of a sudden, others are starting to talk a little bit more about Leftwich too. That's again,
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah, it is funny how that works. But and then as for that's number one. Number two, the Chip Kelly thing. I strongly approve of that move, especially the game plan last Saturday. So keep up the good work in Columbus.
Well, apparently too. I mean, on the subject of Jason Candle, I think a guy that before Ryan Day pivots to Bill O'Brien and pivots to Chip Kelly, has to replace Bill O'Brien, go with Chip Kelly. I think some of the buzz was that Jason Candle was a guy he was interested in. And I'll tell you why I like him. One, he's 45 years old, so still, I mean, he's a seasoned vet compared to a lot of the guys on this staff, but checks a lot of boxes in terms of, younger guy, up and coming guy, has been a head coach for almost a decade already. So you basically just kind of, hand him that side of the ball, let him be the head coach on offense. And I texted with someone earlier today who works in and around MAC football and just asked, threw the name out there. And I've just heard that, great for Ohio recruiting relationships, someone who is well respected throughout the profession, and also a good guy. So when you look at, he's developed some good quarterbacks too. DeQuan Finn went in the transfer portal last year, heads to, I think, what was it, Baylor? I think it was.
Got hurt this year. Yeah,
he did get hurt, and his replacement played pretty good too. But that's besides the point.
Isn't he back? Is he back in the portal, AB?
DeQuan Finn? I don't believe so.
I think he will be.
He could be. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'd be on board with it, especially that would. And you don't make hires based off of this, but just another kind of twist of the knife to the folks down in the state of Ohio who, there might be people down there that kind of rue the day that Ryan Day maybe didn't hire this guy, if that was truly something that was in the book, in the works. But I'd be all for it. Obviously a decade plus of calling plays on offense, coached the quarterbacks. He's coached a team, done pretty darn well down there. I know people say, oh, well, he's only won X amount of MAC titles. That's just, that league is it's just such an odd league because there's a lot of parity in it. But Jason Candle, a guy that, maybe in a lot of ways helped Clay's boy, Matt Campbell, rise to prominence. So I would be all for it if that is the guy.
Clay's boy.
I got nothing against Matt Campbell.
All right.
What would I have against Matt Campbell?
Next.
I was going to just close on any thoughts on any other candidates. We've Chris, you had put a board out there over the weekend. I just looked. I'll tell you what. I don't know that he's in the mix. I don't know that Kenny Dillingham would let him get away, but Marcus Arroyo at Arizona State, Cam Scatabo certainly ran like a person possessed in that game on Saturday. That was a lot of fun to watch. I liked what I saw from them.
Yeah, him and somebody mentioned Jeff Nixon at Syracuse, I think, over there, which would be interesting. So, we're going to hear more names, but again, it's just as likely that we hear something come out of the blue, and there it is, right? So, hopefully it's a good name. Hopefully they win the hire and not the press conference, right? You don't want to see. We've heard names before, right, of guys that were past their prime or they had one good year, so everybody thinks they're good, and they weren't worth a crap. So hopefully it's somebody who fits the culture, and pretty excited to see who it is. I'd really like to get that out of the way so that we can concentrate on the portal and so that they can tell kids who it is so that they can have more success in the portal, frankly.
I don't think Scatabo has any eligibility left, but can Arroyo come and just bring him, because that'd be fun. They need a big back for next year. They don't have a
great
big
name too.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Love it. The other question we keep getting is any other staff changes on the way. I don't know until we know who this coordinator is. That feels like a pretty big domino to fall, and you also have to staff a football team through bowl seasons. So I don't anticipate anything before then.
Unless, yeah, if they hire an OC and he says, I want this guy and this guy, you listen to him, right? And I don't know if you demote people or let them go. There was talk that they were going to demote Kirk Campbell to quarterbacks coach before they decided to part ways with him completely. So it'll be interesting. That's all I got on that at this point. We're going to continue to listen to it. We know we've got people in Toledo that we're supposed to talk to people today. So if we get anything else, certainly we'll have it over at the fort at the Wolverine.com.
Beautiful. All right, I want to take a second to shout out another sponsor of today's show, our pals over at 5-Star Fans. The thrill, the heartbreak, the pride. Being a fan is a wild ride, and with 5-Star Fans, you finally get to get in the game like never before. 5-Star Fans is the place where fiercely loyal fans can directly reward their favorite players, and for a limited time, they're going to give you $5 to send to your favorite player. So if there's a recruit that Michigan is in on that you'd like them to land, you pledged your $5, and if they come to the school, they get that money. If not, it goes right back to you. So you can sign up for that over at 5-starfans.com. Get $5 over there to send to your favorite player when you head to 5-starfans.com. And thank you to our friends there for their support of our show. I want to pivot to basketball now and then we'll take questions to end the program. Sitting at 8-1, fellas, this team went 8-24 last year. And I talked about buying Christmas presents earlier. Haven't even got those knocked out yet. And this basketball team has 8 wins. They're 2-0 in Big Ten play. They are ranked for the first time in I believe 2.5 years, up to number 14 in the country in their first appearance there this season. And last week, I thought two very different types of basketball games. You get caught in one of those classic Big Ten sort of slap fights, and Madison find a way to win that over the number 11 ranked team in the country. And then Iowa comes to town, incredibly tough team. Get yourself into a bit of a shootout. The turnover problems kind of resurface, but you find a way. You get a late basket from Roddy Gale Jr. to send you to 8-1 on the season. And now Clayton will actually be in New York tomorrow at the world famous Madison Square Garden to watch them play John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. So fellas, sitting at 8-1 on the year, 2-0 in Big Ten play. Vibes are pretty good right now.
I like it. I like watching good basketball. I think I went to 4 games last year, guys. So if I'm not mistaken, or 5, it was a mess. The culture stunk. The way the coaching staff was with the media wasn't very good, frankly, at least at the top. So a change needed to be made, and what a breath of fresh air. And Dusty May said he wasn't going to wait a year, right? He said, I want to have success this year. And he was completely confident about it. And look where we are now. So Shane Johnson, you might as well pull up his question there, Anthony. You think they have enough shooters for an Elite Eight run? I do, but these guys have got to start making their shots, right? Reuben Jones is better than he's shown. 42% last year, as Dusty May said. And I'm writing a column about that today, as a matter of fact. So they are. Sam Walters looks like he's never shot a basketball before in the last couple of games. I hate to say it, but he'll get it back. Guys go into slumps. Oh, he's just everybody's quick to jump on these guys. They're just not that good. They're just not as advertised, and that's just not the case. You're going to have your ups and downs. So Duncan Robinson went through slumps at Michigan, and he became one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. So be patient with them, and they're going to be fine. As for the turnovers, as Michigan Rick said, yeah, that's got to change. They've got to be better. And as Dusty May said, that is the one thing preventing us from being an elite team or a really, really good team. And we've got to figure it out. But I trust that he will. Maybe he calls John Beeline, right? Says, hey, what do you do to cut down on turnovers? Because we know how much respect he has for him. That'd be my first call. And John Beeline was there the other night. It was great to see him in the building. He is a basketball god. And if all things go well, he will be in the Naismith Hall of Fame too. But this is a good basketball team. All the Vlad Golden haters, Send him back to Siberia, blah, 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 blah. He was the Big Ten Player of the Week. We said he'd get better. We said we knew he was better. He got better too. So I like this team. I can't wait to see Clay sitting under the basket on Saturday night, flexing like Anthony was down in Florida, getting some TV time for the Wolverine.com. So make sure you wear a tight shirt at Clay.
Will do. Yeah, I'm
All
sure
right.
that would look good.
It's Tuesday night, by the way.
Yeah, whatever night it is. What's today? Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, what did I say?
It's been a long week.
Yeah, right. It has
the
already.
portal.
It's magazine week, folks. So we're struggling to get everything in before Christmas.
Yeah. No, it should be fun, and it's the one thing. I guess I'll start with this first, where Chris, you were talking about the shooting, and really one of the things I found the most interesting before the season that Dusty May talked about is that he didn't want to leave games up to whether or not they got hot or not shooting. Of course, you're going to win some games like that. You're going to lose some games going cold, but he wants to win on the margins as well. And they're really not doing that, yet they're still winning these games. So, Iowa on Saturday shoots 19 more field goal attempts than Michigan because they turned it over 13 more times than Iowa did. They allowed several more offensive rebounds than Michigan got itself. Of course, the Wolverines did a great job getting to the line. Roddy Gale, Vlad Golden, they get to the line a lot. I think that's huge for this team, getting the bonus early in a lot of these games. But in their 6 games against high major opponents, Michigan's only taken more field goals than 2 of those opponents, yet they sit here at 8-1. So if they can clean some of the turnovers up, if they can do a better job rebounding on the defensive glass, then I think you're talking about exponential growth you could see right away, as Dusty May kind of talked about after the game on Saturday. So he's not necessarily pleased. He keeps saying after these games, like, we didn't play that well. And, someone said, do you feel like you guys are coming together as a team? He said, well, I would have said yes if you asked me 2 hours ago, but now, he was half joking, but it's like you had just won a Big Ten game and started out 2-0, but they know that they can be better. So that's exciting. And then, the AP poll, you're sitting there at 14. It doesn't really matter, but just the fact that you're at this point where you're having this type of success early on in the season. They haven't been ranked since November 14th, 2022. They haven't been in the top 15 since November 15th, 2021. So you're looking like a team that's going to be in the dance. Of course, long way to go, but you're looking like that right now, plus a bunch of those improvements to come. So I'm excited. Tough matchup against Arkansas, but should be a fun one.
Tough next few games, both on a neutral floor. They're going to play Arkansas tomorrow night. They'll play Oklahoma in the Jumpman Invitational on December 18th. So they have that 8-day layoff. I think I learned everything I need to know about Dusty May the first night of the season, where they beat, again, it's Cleveland State. I get that, but they put up 101 points. They win by 48 points. And one of his first comments after the game were, yeah, it was okay. It was fine.
Solid.
Solid is what he said. This team plays for 40 minutes. And I think that's been the through line with no matter the type of games that they've gotten themselves into. And a decent amount of close games. They lost the Wake Forest one, but that Virginia Tech game was a dogfight. TCU was a dogfight. Obviously, the 2 Big Ten games last week. You see what you need to see from a closing standpoint. Juwan Howard teams the last few years, they played 36 minutes, 37 minutes, and then the wheels would completely fall off in crunch time when they couldn't close out some of these games. So that's been great to see. Again, in order for them to be, I know there are these individual moments where you're like, man, this team is really good. And they got 5-6 guys on a given night that could score 15 to 20 points if they need to. But in order to kind of be one of those quote unquote contenders, you got to be a top 25 offense. They're sitting at 43 right now on KenPom. The turnovers, if they're able to cut into that deficit a little bit, that'll help that surge, because you can't be efficient when other teams have that many more possessions. But I think they can get there. And you could even see it to a certain extent with some of the the anticipatory passes that they would make early in the year, and the guy wouldn't be there. You can see those things start to iron themselves out, but still a little too careless with the basketball.
Yep, they are, and that's what needs to change flat out. And Dusty said that. So, but I agree with you. And they're going to shoot the ball better. They just are. This is a better shooting team than they've shown. And I mean, you can't get better looks than Ruben Jones has had. It's almost like Clay said, they're not guarding him on purpose, and he's still. I mean, he's not even close. Sam Walters with the line drive hook shot, or the line drive side spin. Looks great when it goes in.
It
Looks
does.
really, really bad when it doesn't. So. But he'll work it out. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, 10 of 45 from 3 the last 2 games. So I mean, it evens out, right? You don't. It's not like every night you shoot your average. That's not how basketball works. So, but yeah, it's kind of funny when they don't go in. You're like, how are these guys ever going to make a shot? And then they start going in. You're like, oh my god, they got all these shooters all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how that works on a night to night basis. But going back to the turnovers. Chris, you said, all right, call John Beilein in. He's the lack of turnover specialist. I think one thing, though, John Beilein would say is, all right, time travel back to the summer and start working on your pivoting, your passing, catching, yeah, exactly. Chest pass, you catch the ball on 2. That way you can pivot with either foot. So, it is something you have to prioritize certain things. And Anthony, you asked Dusty this after the first exhibition game. You said, hey, was the turnovers, the lack of
yeah, they were 7 for 16 from the free throw line that night.
Right. And he said, honestly, we've shot free throws, but we haven't worked on them as much as you normally would. We got a bunch of new pieces. We're trying to get this system intact. We're trying to get everyone to mesh together. So they had to prioritize different things when you have this many new pieces. So, maybe the turnover is just going to take a little bit more time. And they got finals coming up. They got a little bit more time in between some of the next couple games to practice. Also, you gotta hit up those finals, do a good job, so you're not just playing in home games in the second half of the year. But yeah, maybe they'll be able to clean them up as they get more time over at the PDC.
We're getting all kinds of great news over here, guys, on emails and texts. Not that I'm not paying attention to you, because I obviously value everything you say.
I see what you're seeing.
But credentials and bonuses and Christmas joy, it just gets better and better. So the 3 of us will be down in Tampa. We can't wait. So,
I was gonna ask if there was anything that you came through your phone that you could reveal on the show, and then our phones went off at the same time. So
there you go.
There it is.
So I like having the team together down there. It's a lot of fun, man. We always have a good time. So these guys make fun of me for it. Gosh, this is fun, and I feel like
we don't make fun of you for it.
It's hurtful, but I still, it's like watching your kids having a good time. Is what it's like. If you guys were young enough to be my sons, how's that?
No one doing
if we were.
Yes,
right. No, we don't need to do math here. This isn't a math show. Any other final thoughts on hoops before we move into questions? We have a lot this week, so.
No, actually. So Shane Johnson, Coach May, incredible hire. Shane Johnson keeps this channel afloat, man. We really appreciate you, Shane. $4.99 on the super chat brought me back to JB vibes, which were some of my all-time fan moments. 100%. Shane, I talked to John Beilein last week, and he said exceptional when he was talking about Dusty May. He said this is a great Michigan team, and he expects them to really make some noise. And he said Dusty May is exceptional. That's good enough for me. John Beilein is on my Mount Rushmore of Michigan coaches. Maybe my Mount Rushmore is like 8 guys, but it would probably be called something else then. But at the same time, it's hard to choose when you've got so many elite coaches.
Let's park there for a second. Maybe not a Mount Rushmore, but a top 5. Like, let's get some top 5s going.
Hutch softball, right? Bo Schembechler. You got Yost and Chrysler, right? Red, Yost and Chrysler. What do you do? So it's hard to. And Lloyd would be close. He's right in that second tier. But those are the names that come to mind. And who am I missing? Right? John Beilein's obviously on there.
Yeah. For me, he's on there. Harbaugh, Yost, Schembechler. But yeah, you can't leave off people from other sports. I guess. It's too hard to keep it at 4. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. If you just pick Jim Harbaugh, I think that you can forego the Bows and the Chryslers, because like they all live. He's a vessel of all of them somehow.
Fair.
Well, that's cheating, but
I don't
Or
care.
you
You
pick
know, that's how I
Bo.
get
You
5
pick
for
I
Bo,
Bo.
like
you
my
say
I like my way better. Just make let's just expand Mount Rushmore to 8. Okay,
participation
Sure.
trophy, Rushmore.
exactly.
Well, I mean, a lot of great coaches too. I mean,
Yeah,
let's just, I mean, we won't get too into it, but like pound for pound, what John Beeline did at Michigan, I think is as impressive as anything that anyone's ever done there. But yeah, Hutch would be there, Red would be there, Bo would be there, Harbaugh would be there. I mean, you go through all these sports and you don't want to single. I mean, you want to
Dusty.
go to the non-revenue sports. I mean, I think Bev Plocky's done an amazing job with women's gymnastics.
Good
There's
point.
a lot of great coaches over there. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
been a lot
And
of
think
fun.
of Bo. You know, he also helped produce Jim Harbaugh and make him what he was, and Gary Moeller and Lloyd Carr and everything. So really, a 40+ years of Michigan football is chalked up partly to him as well. So it's not apples to apples, you know. And if let's say JJ McCarthy comes back and ends up being the head coach of Michigan one day, then Harbaugh gets a little bit of credit for that too. So yeah, it's
Which means Bo would also
self-sustaining.
get credit because
I am for it.
So
Me
hey,
too.
a lot
I am
of good
for that.
coaches.
And good karma to JJ. Talked to somebody close to him last week, and they said he's ahead of schedule with his knee recovery. So, which is great. One of the greatest kids we've ever covered here, guys. Just not just player, but even better person. I can't stress enough what a joy that was. So, thank you, McCarthy's, for sharing him with us.
No doubt.
Right on. All right, let's move into our Q&A for the week. We've got a lot in the chat. We took a lot from the message board. Nick for $1.99 says, Day should take beard advice from Gorgeous Anthony. That's the first time I've ever been called gorgeous on here, so I'll take that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. And I
Is that your
agree.
burner?
No,
That
I
is-
accept the
That is
compliment.
one heck of a beard. Do you use the manscaping tool for up and down, or how does that work? Because you'd have to clean it and stuff. How's that?
Well, they sent us a lot of stuff over the years, so I'll
Right.
just leave it at that.
Okay.
I'll say this: I do, not to pat myself on the back, better beard than Ryan Day, better hair than Marcus Freeman too. I don't know if you guys saw him on the playoff show yesterday, but
I don't know what that was, but
I just
thought this was old guy yells at cloud like, "What is that?" You know,
The recruits love it.
Do they? Okay.
I don't know.
Let's poll them.
Yeah.
All right.
Bold. Thank you, Nick. I'm sure my wife won't get jealous at all over that. Let's take this one from I just had it here. JJB Wolverine 80 on the board, who says, will we be going Iron Man football against Alabama? Haven't seen that since 40-year-old Paul Blake led the Texas Fighting Armadillos to an upset victory over the #1 Texas Colts and their star linebacker Flat Top. Chris, this is too old soul even for me to understand.
And me, I have no idea what he's talking about. Is that where's John Borton when you need him? You know?
Yeah, it's like a phone a friend on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We got to call in the source here. I don't know what any of that means, so I'll have to.
Well, I don't.
I'll have to.
I couldn't tell you, but yeah. Next question. Good try.
All
though.
Right. This one comes from Austin C99, who says, do you feel like Sherrone is taking his time, as some of the hires in his first offseason came back to bite him? And then in parentheses, he says Greg Scruggs and Kirk Campbell. I wouldn't put those in the same category, but that's what he said. Feels like they had to have some ideas weeks ago when they landed Bryce. So I'm not sure why we don't have much of anything right now.
Great question. I hope so. And I hope this isn't the only staff change. I hate to say it but I do think they need to upgrade some positions. Right. So, but I think that he needs to lean on different people. And it was in his defense, he really had to keep, I mean, he really didn't have a whole lot of time to put a staff together, right? It was almost, you hate to call them leftovers, right? But that's kind of what it felt like. So, but you can fix your mistakes, and this can't be about money, right? I don't care what buyouts are or anything else. You cannot keep weak links on your staff. And as I hate to quote Urban Meyer, but as Urban Meyer said, I could never have a weak recruiter on my staff. I can't have a weak link. And there's a reason that he won at such a high level. So we'll see what happens here. Sherrone did say that he wasn't going to make any more staff changes, at least initially or immediately. But again, as we talked about, I think the coordinator might have something to do with that. And as the longer it goes, maybe he's waiting for a guy that's still coaching, right? That's something that we also need to think about. Maybe he has this guy and that guy's still coaching.
Yeah, it could be. So yeah, I think that you know, it's a process, and a lot of the guys he brought in, he either promoted from within or some of them had prior relationships with him. I think he's got to expand the reach a little bit, and he was handicapped somewhat by the timing of taking the job in late January last year. Now the timing is, on equal footing with everybody else that's competing for some of these coaches. So, he has an opportunity here to make the best hire possible, and let's see, if he can do it. But I do think things are moving pretty quickly. It feels like with the coordinator hires right now across the country. So I feel like this should come soon, maybe by the end of the week. It's just a guess based on how other teams are moving. Because it is dominoes. Anthony, you mentioned that word earlier when it comes to, maybe some of the transfer portal recruiting, but same thing in the carousel here. So it'll be fascinating to see how quickly they move and who they get.
I'm going to counter Chris's Urban Meyer quote with one we heard from Jim Harbaugh a few times, which is, like Moses, I'm going to die leaning on my staff. Sherrone needs more of those guys. It would be great to get Biff Poggi back in the building, get, like you said, a couple of these, at least one assistant who has some gravitas about him and that has been through it. Because, it was, I won't go as far as to say leftovers, but, kind of wrote it in a different way this year, said that this isn't really the place to learn on the job. And when you just need more people in the building who have been in this situation before. So the fact that they survived it, got out the other side, I think is a big positive as well. So we'll see what happens there. We'll go to this $5 super chat from Michigan Go Blue 1234, who says, what's the biggest key to beating Arkansas tomorrow?
I'm going to start with Clay. Clay's the guy that puts these previews together. Have you looked into this at all?
Yeah. I hate to go back to something we already talked about, but it's taking care of the basketball. Arkansas forces a lot of turnovers. They block a lot of shots. They're pretty athletic. We'll see if their big man Z, I don't even want to try to pronounce his name, but his twin brother plays at Illinois. So we'll see two clones out there this year. If he plays, he missed the last game. They got a lot of size down low. So, and pretty athletic team. So I'll say take care of the ball, but they got a lot of shot makers too. So the high level defense Michigan played before the Iowa game needs to kind of come back, I think. And we'll see. It should be interesting to see Danny Wolf go against, a little more of an athletic four rather than some of the guys he's faced so far this year.
Yeah, there you have it. So I don't have anything to add other than make some shots too, right? Michigan plays well in New York.
In the bucket, man.
Michigan usually plays well in New York.
They've won their last 11 games at MSG. Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's make it 12.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this. I learned about teams. I haven't watched a ton of other games yet this year, but I learned about these teams by, one, watching games, and two, by Clayton's game previews, which he does a phenomenal job of. So be sure to check that out early day.
Probably too good. It's unbelievable, the detail that you go into there, and it's just like, man, I feel like this is too good for us, man. It's just unreal. So
we'll dial it back.
Careful, we're trying to keep them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
No, it's so more on that matchup. Obviously, tomorrow will be fun. Opportunity for you. Hopefully, they have you courtside, like I was in Fort Myers. A little bit different.
See
the gym they were playing in Fort Myers. So
I want those sleeves choking out your arms, buddy. I want them to pop out like Anthony's did down in Florida.
I'll just wear a cutoff.
Wear a cutoff. Do whatever you got to do. Biff Poggi. Talk to Biff Poggi and see if he'll lend you a shirt. So
I love Biff.
All right.
I do too.
All right. We will move to one from the chat from David.
We got 2
Chapman.
minutes. 2 minutes.
Oh, well, we might go a little bit over because we got a lot here.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't have the quiche in the oven. I had mine earlier today. He says, Ballas, if we don't get a port, this one's addressed to you, so you have to stick around.
Because he's mad. He's mad about the Jaden Davis thing. He really wants Jaden Davis to be the guy. And if you could go over here and look, but he's not going to be, unfortunately.
Well, let's answer the man's question though. If we don't get a portal QB and Bryson isn't ready, then who?
Yeah. It's funny. Everybody. Can't stand Davis Warren. You know what? There's a reason that Davis Warren is head and shoulders and playing above Jaden Davis right now. And it's because he's a better quarterback. And frankly, from everything we've heard from everybody, it's not really all that close. So they will get a portal quarterback, though. I really have no doubt about that. If they have to open up the checkbook, then so be it. But they will get a portal quarterback. And I would like to see them keep Davis Warren as QB3 from a leadership standpoint. And I would like, just selfishly, he's such a good kid. I'd like to see him on this football team.
Me too.
So there
I
you
think
go.
it's good to have that option to go with
Mhm.
him. So
Right.
to me, it's easily Davis Warren as long as he stays. Of course, you
Mhm.
can't predict everybody who's going to come and go, but
No.
if it's the guys that are still here that have eligibility left, which they all do, it's Davis
Mhm.
Warren. It's not really close.
Yeah, I mean to a lesser extent of getting guys like Bredesen and Rod Moore back, like getting Davis Warren back, because if nothing else, and we all have first hand knowledge of this, like whenever they were doing a spring ball presser or something, like he's either on his way in the building or on his way out of the building. A dude that's always kind of getting extra work in, helping other guys get work in. So we'd love to keep him around. I think he could
Leaving
do
the
much
building,
worse.
doesn't necessarily make your point, but I see what you're saying.
Well, if it's dark outside,
It's fair. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. This one from Welch Snack. He says, could we please replace Texas and Oklahoma and add UCF to the schedule going forward now that Scott Frost is back?
They would hit harder than anybody in a 50-point loss. I can promise you that. Those
Yep.
Scott Frost teams, I've never seen a team hit harder getting their ass kicked by 50 points than Scott Frost's team. And he's got a very spunky mother. I would add that as well. So
Wow.
welcome back, Scott. So good luck to you.
I'd be for this. I mean, the schedule's tough enough in the Big Ten, but they're not going to do that, and we don't control it. So I don't think this is going to happen.
How about we end on this? This is from Daller J, who says, what does the perfect offense look like next year? We can't turn into Ohio and become soft. Running it 70% of the time and not taking shots down the field is also a waste of Underwood's talent. How can we blend smash with scheming some guys open and taking shots to keep the defense honest and not having to have 15 play drives to score?
A little more power spread, I think, right? Spread them out a little bit, get a couple of guys that can make some plays in space. And yeah, especially if Davis Warren's running it. Rip Star. No, I'm just kidding. So he's ripping on your boy Davis Warren over there. So to me, you've got to first of all find somebody who's done it at a high level, right, as a coordinator. So but there are ways, and we've seen several teams over the years. Urban Meyer teams do it well. They weren't soft. Urban Meyer teams. I hate to say it. I hate to even mention his name, but they could punch you in the mouth. Remember the first game in Ann Arbor against Jim Harbaugh, right? They had playmakers all over the field, but then they didn't even need to use them because they ran it down Michigan's throat. So that's what I want it to look like. Ideally, I really want some receivers. I want to see some downfield passes again, guys. That would be really nice if we could see a completion over 30 or 40 yards too.
Yeah, and Urban didn't have to use those weapons. He had to use Zeke Elliott because he didn't use them the week before when they lost to Michigan State. Yeah.
Dang.
Now, the speed in space, I mean, you said making plays in space. You want those guys to have speed.
No, I don't
You
want
them to
any.
be slow then.
Stop the speed and space shit. Okay, I
Well,
don't
you
wanna hear
said
that.
guys that make plays in space. You want them to have speed, right?
Well, I don't want him to be offensive lineman out there. We don't want to see Panay Sewell, throwing the ball to Panay Sewell. So
there's only one name. Scott Frost.
I would
UCF,
like to see that.
Yeah,
people are going back to where they've been before. Sometimes you got to go back to actually move forward. Matthew McConaughey said. So.
Yeah, that not in this instance. To be perfectly clear,
I agree. Honestly, I would like to see, in all seriousness, something similar to what Sherrone Moore ran at Michigan.
Yeah.
When he was the offense coordinator, of course, which is Jim Harbaugh's offense, but someone that can run a very similar offense. Part of the problem is the talent. So I think they need to boost that and get somebody with experience that can help manage a game, be the head coach of the offense. Boom. I don't think it's that hard of a fix as long as you get the right guy and you bring in talent. It doesn't matter who's calling the offense if you don't have receivers that can catch the ball, make plays, a good offensive line, all that, good quarterback. So it's both.
Yeah, I just want to see them do what has worked well for them better than they did this year and more like they did last year. I don't think it has to be that because it's been proven that recipe can still kind of work. So we have a comment here. Chris, you want to explain this one?
Do you?
No. Marmar says, Chris Ballas, I am Marmar. If you didn't know, now you know.
Marmar, your name says Marmar on there.
Yeah, I'm not. You lost me. So I guess that's just me My,
All
you
right.
know,
Mar, welcome. You're
Yep.
one of us now.
Absolutely.
One way or
Thank you
another.
He also says this.
I
Hold
do.
on.
he says,
Okay.
"Yep." See,
Oh,
you
Jack
just
Sawyer's not to see. There it goes.
Yeah.
I do need to sneak one more in. From
Yep.
Indy Wolverine 23 on the board. He said
Mhm.
I recently read that OSU is on a 4-game losing streak to Michigan. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely accurate. Although, according to some goofy blog, only 2 of them were bad losses because 2 of them shouldn't really count, or something like that. It was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So, Marmar, love you, man. Thank you for being here, and it's been a fun chat, guys. But I do have to get my quiche,
Is it a man?
or woman, whatever. So looks, I can't, don't put me on the spot here. All right.
All right. We better just get out of here.
Yeah.
For Chris Ballas, for Clayton Safety, for Marmar, for our producer Megan behind the scenes as well. I'm Anthony Broom. Guys, remember to use that promo code UM1. It's going to get you 2 months of access over at thewolverine.com for the latest on transfer portal, coaching search, coaching changes, anything that comes up. We got you covered. It's the best deal in America, per my co-host here. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on the YouTube channel. We'll talk to you again next week.